Alright. Well, it is that same Netrunner time, same Netrunner place. Turns out order and chaos is still legal. I tried. What? NDB? NDB, you failed me. Sorry, I tried very hard, but I couldn't find what you're looking for. That's pretty much it. What? That's amazing. Guys, go to Chez. Go to supported formats and click on order and chaos. You'll get this fancy little message. It worked when yeah, the other things work. Anyway, the only thing I wanted to point out is that order and chaos is still legal, which means that hive mind is still legal, which means you can hive mind your Amakuas, your fermenters, your conduits. If you wanted to get really crazy, you can still throw your hive minds on progenitor. Hive mind and progenitor, of course, coming out in the same big box. At any rate, let's jump into a couple games. See what people in the world of running the nets are doing tonight. As always, I do understand that seeing your game streamed on Twitch may make you uncomfortable. If that is the case, just let me know, and I will add your name to a list and avoid streaming you in the future. Is that Adam? Oh my goodness, we have to watch this game. It's Adam! I haven't seen Adam in so long. I'm so happy. Okay, first game of the night, Adam, the man who needs no introduction because he is no man. Byroid directive runner himself versus NBN Reality Plus. Looks like Adam on turn 2 runs into HQ. Makes sense, he gets the double access. Access as an NGO has to trash that due to neutralize all threats. Also, Access as a punitive counter-strike runs the remote, which ends up being a spin doctor. Adam does run into it and pays 2 credits to trash. 2 creative commissions already used by Adam, and a multi-threader dumped at some point. I'm not sure why that happened. We'll have to see what went down. 2 Rashidas already in the bin. That's a win for any runner. The Corp double ices, 1 ice on R&D, 1 ice on HQ. Back over to Adam. Adam just sets up, drops a logic bomb daily cast, and clicks for 2 credits. Of course, safety first, lowering his hand size to 3, but giving him a free card draw at the end of every one of his turns. Reality Plus draws a card, ices Archives, and then uses Hansei Review. Icing Archives makes sense. That actually kind of indicates that there's potentially agendas in HQ if you're going to ice Archives before using Hansei, because Hansei forces the trash. Back over to Adam. More setup. Draws a card. He is forced to reveal what card he's drawing. It is a boomerang. I wonder if this is the Australian Adam deck I saw earlier on Netrunner DB today. It could be because of the boomerangs and creative commissions. Those were 2 cards in the end. The Rozeki. I'm willing to bet this is the Australian Adam deck that I saw on NDB. I'm not a huge fan of it, but then again, I'm not a huge fan of most other people's Adam decks. You get a little bit snooty when you have a favorite runner and you basically only build decks for that one runner. But that's okay. Adam checks a blank remote, which ends up being the 3rd Rashida. No more Rashidas. Little curious that Reality Plus threw down the Rashida unprotected. Especially when this Adam is shown Adam is very incentivized to just run anything, mostly to trigger Find the Truth. And if he gets to check a blank server in addition to running, he's more than happy to do that. He also has plenty of credits, so he's not afraid of traces. Boomerang's the remote ice, which has a card behind it. It is a Hydra. Pretty strong piece of ice if the runner is tagged. Of course, Adam is not tagged. Boomerang's two of these subroutines. We'll see which one gets to fire. I think the corp might have accidentally allowed the runner to pass. One of those subs should have fired, I believe. See, the text should say what was broken. Boomerang breaks. Give the runner a tag, and the run if the runner is tagged. Otherwise, give the runner a tag. Oh, right. Basically, all the subroutines just give the runner a tag if they don't have a tag. So Adam takes a tag. Not the end of the world. He's got another click to shake that. Gets into the server. Sees a Bologna. Does pay the 5 credits to steal it. I think that's safe. The corp is down to 11 credits. Even shaking the tag, he's gonna have 13. I think that's still pretty safe. Economic warfare is still in the game, but we haven't seen any yet. Not that it couldn't still be floating around in HQ or R&D somewhere, but I mean, double economic warfare into hard-hitting news would really suck right now. But if this is Australian Adam, it runs Deuces Wild. Deuces Wild, of course, can help a little bit in the whole tag removal process. Essentially letting you remove one tag and gaining a credit for a single click. Overall, though, I think that was a good move on Adam's part. I think that made sense. Hydra, pretty expensive. 10 credit blow to the corp. The corp puts another piece of ice on the remote and archive memories. What are we looking for here? What, a Rashida? An NGO? A spin doctor? There are a couple options here. I suppose you could even take the Hansei review. Looks like it was the face down card. So maybe I was, we were correct in reading that Hansei review could have trashed an agenda, and that's why the corp iced HQ. Whatever that face down card was, we have to assume it was the one that was installed here. Passing back over to the runner. They drop Brain Chip. Yeah, and the one copy of DreamNet. This is matching Australian Adam to a T. So far, though, the early aggression has been playing out pretty well for Adam. Adam tends to do pretty well against thinly iced decks. I think he struggles a bit against Glacier or any kind of corp deck that just prevents him from getting that first agenda. Once you get that first agenda, though, you become a normal hand-sized runner due to Brain Chip. And with free draw, it's very strong. Getting that first agenda can be a little rough, though. An overclock run into HQ reveals a ping, so that's going to be a tag right out the gate. Reality Plus takes 2 credits off of the tag, effectively making the res cost of ping 0. Gets into HQ, sees a boom, forced to trash that, but overclock money lets Adam do that for free. Punitive Counter-Strike also accessed. So we're already savvy to the game plan. The game plan is probably punitive Adam after a big agenda steal. The problem is, after a couple agendas, it's very hard to actually kill Adam, even with boom, since he can potentially hold 7 or more cards in hand with enough agenda points on the Brain Chip, which, if Adam steals another 3-pointer, is going to be in the cards for him. In the cards. Corp draws a card, plays Hedge Fund and Hard-Hitting Newses, but at what cost? Adam already has 9 credits. He can just shake these tags. The corp does boost the trace so that it's out of Adam's reach, but The Corp had to spend 9 credits to do that. Adam's just going to remove 3 of the tags manually, and one of the tags indeed is removed with Deuce's Wild. Hard-hitting news is now off the table. That almost felt like an even trade. But I feel like the Corp would much rather have that money. So even though it was sort of a somewhat even trade as far as money went, I don't know if it was necessarily in the Corp's favor. Now, Adam is low on cash for now, which does mean that potentially getting into the server may be difficult, and maybe that's exactly why the Corp did it, to create a very short scoring window for this remote specifically. We'll have to see what this card in Server 4 ends up being. Could just be an NGO front. Reality Plus already revealed the fact that they run that card. Adam decides to dirty laundry into R&D, sees an IP block. No barrier breaker so far. Decides to paint it with Angolo. It's a little expensive. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think we want to do that. Because it would be 5 credits to paint IP block. Which I suppose Adam could do? Wait, where'd the extra money go? He only has 4 credits. Okay, so he logic bombs through IP block. That makes a certain level of sense because he really needs to keep his money up. We have to assume that Reality Plus runs more than just one copy of hard-hitting news. Gets into HQ, uses the RNG safety first combo to correctly guess the card, uses RNG key to gain 3 credits. Making it more difficult, of course, for NBN to actually nuke him through hard-hitting news or something like that. The card in Server 4 was a 5-3, a Bologna. Credit neutral score on NBN's part, so they're back up to 11 credits. But through the use of Creative Commission and Sure Gamble, Adam jumps up to 21 credits. Rozeki has, of course, been ticking on his side of the field the entire game. Or at least a large portion of it. It's a somewhat tied game. There's no clear indicator that someone is winning here, necessarily, although I think it's tipping slightly in favor of Adam. Though Australian Adam has no recursion on those logic bombs, so once the logic bomb is gone, it's gone. The Corp puts another piece of ice on the remote and drops a card behind all 3 pieces. Adam decides on click 2 to run Archives, hits a Turnpike, loses a credit on the on encounter, and then paints it with Angolo to break it. For a total of 5 credits. Wouldn't it just be cheaper to take the tag and then shake the tag? Yeah, because he didn't do anything after that. I think that's a bit of a mistake. I think you just let the Turnpike fire. Turnpike is a trace 5, give the runner a tag. Although perhaps the idea was to prevent Reality Plus's ID from firing. I always forget that. So no, that might have been worth spending 5 credits, especially because 2 of them came from Multithreader, I believe. So he only spent 3 real credits. 3 real credits to prevent the Corp from gaining 2. That makes a bit more sense. Back over to the Corp, a new piece of ice hits R&D to protect potential future agendas. Sort of signifies that there might not be any agendas in HQ. The card in Server 4 is double advanced. We've only seen 2 5-3s so far. Is this another 5-3, or is this just an NGO front? The possibility of an NGO front is just always something you have to consider. Adam sure gambles and then overclocks into the remote. This makes sense. If it is an agenda, you might as well get in there. If it's not an agenda, you at least get to see the ice on the remote so you know how to plan your future runs. This is Adam's second click running into the remote, so he'll have plenty of time to shake tags if needed. Ping is res. Reality plus taking 2 credits. I don't know if there are too many turns when you want to take the draw. I think credits are probably almost always going to be more valuable. I guess it depends on the tempo of the deck. We'll see, though. We'll see. Adam bounces off of ping and then runs the ping on HQ. He'll access both the cards in HQ due to neutralize all threats, in addition to seeing the top card of R&D. So he'll get information. So even if the card in server 4 is an NGO front, So you see there the runner actually typed in hard-hitting news, and that was so that they could get the credit cost of hard-hitting news, so that they can guess the costs with RNG key. Punitive Counter-Strike is encountered, which by coincidence has the same cost, so RNG key does fire, gains Adam 3 credits. That's a... Technically, I think that's a bit, you know, sidestepping the rules a little bit. In a real game of Netrunner, you can't ask your opponent what the res cost of hard-hitting news is, but also you're allowed to look at your opponent's discard pile, and there's a hard-hitting news in there, so he just could have done that. So the outcome is still the same. Anyway, sees Punitive Counter-Strike and Punitive Counter-Strike in HQ. So at least Adam knows what is in HQ right now. The Corp triple advances the card in Server Forge, does end up being send a message, reses the Hydra on R&D for free. That's 10 credits for free. Pretty good. Adam is going to run back into HQ. Now, he already knows all the cards that are in HQ. It's 2 Punitive Counter-Strikes and whatever card was on the top of R&D that he saw from his last run. The real reason he's doing this is because it only costs him 1 real credit to get into HQ. And this triggers his dream net. Oh, and he knew. He knew apparently it was a Bologna. I guess I didn't consider that as a possibility. So he knew the Bologna was coming into HQ, runs in, steals it. Guessed 3. Kind of bad luck he accessed the Bologna before the Punitive Counter-Strike, so no RNG key fire, but that's okay. The Corp draws twice, kind of trying to get out of that pseudo R&D lock that Adam had him under. A new card goes into Server 4. Adam ignores this, going right back into HQ, and this makes sense. There are potentially 1 to 2 cards in HQ that Adam doesn't know what they are. Plus a run like this, again, only costing Adam 1 real credit. Dreamnet firing, drawing Adam a card. Find the Truth firing, showing Adam what's on the top of R&D. Punitive Counter-Strike credit was guessed again with RNG key, gaining Adam 3 credits. Running into HQ makes a lot of sense in this scenario. No agenda scored. No, nothing trashed, it looks like. But due to the extra cards Adam has, he drops his Carmen, he drops his Logic Bomb. Carmen being the new killer. Personally, I feel like Odore, it's a little better, but Carmen has its place, I suppose. I think Carmen boosts to higher strengths better, but Odore is going to be cheaper. Unless you've made a successful run. I forget, is the install cost of Odore 2 or 3? Because if it's 3, it's the exact same. Oh, it's 4. What am I saying? So actually, Carmen's cheaper to install if you've made a successful run. Anyway, card in server 5 ends up being a spin doctor that is res to draw 2 cards, also helping the corp sort of break out again from that pseudo R&D lock that Adam had them under. A new card is in server 4. Adam drops Boomerang on the unres piece of ice on the remote and overclocks into the remote. Ping is not going to be that much trouble. Australian Adam runs a single copy of Paperclip. But Ngolo allows him to paint Ping. There's no res on the middle piece of ice. The Hydra is broken through using Carmen, and the final agenda is stolen. Send a message. And there you have it. So this was really fun to actually see. I was curious about this when I read the deck listing of Australian Adam. I think this was a good showcase for it. Now, not all of your Adam games will go like this. If you don't score an early agenda, it can be kind of a drought when you play Adam. If your opponent has thick ice that they're able to get down early and res early, and you struggle to get through it, it can be tricky to actually get some momentum going. But the real killer here is that the Corp couldn't put 2 good pieces of ice on both R&D and HQ. They only had this one Hydra. They decided to put it on R&D, and that was probably because they didn't want Adam to fire off a consistent RNG key. Because with a multi-threader on the table, you can get through IP block with an Ngolo basically for free. Because you paint IP block for 2. You boost Ngolo for 2. You pay 1 to break the subroutine. 2 of the credits come from multi-threader. 3 of the credits come from the RNG key fire. So essentially, Adam would get a free access on R&D every turn. But I think that's better, as weird as it sounds, giving that free access on R&D every turn, than letting Adam into HQ. Because the problem is, what happened when he got into HQ is once he learned that there were 2 punitive counterstrikes in HQ, he just named 3 anyway on RNG key and was able to fire it almost every time. He was accessing 2 cards and seeing a 3rd card. Even though it's rough when Adam RNG keys R&D, he'd much rather be into HQ. HQ is where the real value is. So yeah, I think this Hydra should have gone in front of HQ. I know why the Turnpike was res on Archives. I think it was installed very early in the game when Hansei review was played and potentially trashed an agenda, which ended up in Archives. So the ice was there to protect that. But we see a slot machine and a Turnpike. How did these get in the bin? A slot machine and a Turnpike in front of either both of them on HQ, or one on HQ, one on R&D. Nah, you probably don't even need it on R&D anymore. Hydra and IP block is enough to dissuade too many runs. So you could drop Turnpike and slot machine. When did these get trashed? Did the Corp overdraw? Adam's got no way to trash ice. But yeah, it just could have been too that the Corp just didn't draw their other ice. When you look at this deck, what's the strategy? These are good cards here, but there's nothing fancy going on. We see standard economy, standard tempo in the form of Rashida, Losing all 3 Rashidas, though, definitely sucked. I mean, that's never what you want as the corp. But hedge fund, punitive. I mean, it looks like this is a very simple make money, kill the runner deck. You either kill them by tagging them, or you kill them by punitiving them. But the Corp played this kind of weird game where they kept trying to score. It's like they were trying to score out, but they never let themselves have enough money to actually threaten the kill. Admittedly, Adam had a decent amount of money, so I'm not saying it was easy. I think that early hard-hitting news where Adam just shook the tags was a bad move. I think that money would have been better kept on hand and then used to threaten a punitive kill. But also, at the time when punitive was available, Adam had already stolen 1 Bologna. It's tough. I think the early Bologna score just made it really hard for the Corp. Their kill to win options were very limited at that point. It's not like Adam was running out of cards either. He had 16 more cards in hand, so you're not, or in stack, so you're not going to grind him out of his deck. That being said, I was dubious about Australian Adam for a couple reasons. First off, Creative Commission is not in any way a bad card. It's a good card. I mean, it's a sure gamble that you can play on the last click. Sure gamble is almost a 3 of in every single deck for a reason, so having another 3 copies of Sure Gamble definitely makes sense to me. The reason I don't like it is because it conflicts with Logic Bomb. You want to play Creative Commission on your last click. You want to use Logic Bomb on your last click, typically. Of course, in a vacuum, it's easy to say things like that. In a real game, that scenario can change. But I also don't like this because the Boomerang is fine. I don't have any problem with the Boomerang. I don't typically slot Boomerang in a lot of decks, but it's a good icebreaker. It's strong. You can't rely exclusively on it necessarily, but it's a good card. The real problem I have is there's only 1 of each breaker, and the deck runs 3 emergent creativities, and there aren't very many targets for emergent creativity in this deck. You have 2 extra copies of Brain Chip, and I want to say that's it. Oh, and Paperclip. You can target Paperclip, but that's it. I don't know why this deck runs 3 copies of emergent creativity. I think you could drop it down to 2. It probably runs 3 because it does only run 1 of each breaker. So you need to be able to find them in your deck at a moment's notice if you need them quickly. The Overclock is good. Dirty Laundry, of course, makes sense. Day of the Cass, it's an economy card. It's quite possible Adam had an emergent creativity or 2 in hand. I'm just trying to play out different scenarios in my head. Like, if a big, beefy barrier is rezzed, Adam doesn't have his Paperclip. The pings were easy enough to get through because he could just paint them with Angolo. I don't know. It's a good aggressive deck, but I think against a better constructed Corp deck, it's going to struggle a little bit. It does run on the higher end of money, though. I'll give it that. Due to the inclusion of Creative Commission. Creative Commission generated 4 credits each use, right? 3 more, of course, than if you just clicked for credits. So that's 9 more credits than if you had just clicked for credits. If you subtract 9 from 16, you're only down to 7 credits. Or sorry, what I mean is you only have 7 credits left, which isn't great. So yeah, the overclock creative commission definitely let Adam stay at a good level of money. He didn't have to be that afraid of getting punitive, that afraid of hard-hitting news. And that does tend to be one of Adam's early weaknesses. My apologies, I could talk about Adam all day. Let's move on. Oh, we're gonna get another Adam game? Is Adam popular tonight? Ooh, this is a different Adam deck. Man, it's Christmas. We're getting all the Adam decks tonight. This is fantastic. Okay, so different Adam deck versus Restoring Humanity. This Adam deck apparently takes advantage of the T400. I like the idea of putting just 1 copy of the T400 in an Adam deck. Just 1. It helps offset the drought that can occur if your brain chip isn't being powered by agendas. Anyway, Restoring Humanity, of course, gains an extra credit at the end of their turn, I believe. Yes, when your discard phase ends, they get a credit if there's a face down in their archives. We're already on turn 6. There's a couple cards already on the table. All centrals have a single piece of ice. Spin Doctor is res. There is a card in server 3 and a card in server 4, both unknown. The card in 4 is double advance. Adam is pretty set up as far as the early game goes. He's got no long-term economy here, but that's fine. Double Logic Bomb, a reclaim to recur those Logic Bombs, or even a Mayfly, if really needed. The T400 is going to give him an extra hand size, which makes it a little easier to get around safety first, lowering your hand size down to 3. A Simul Chip. Wow, we are really doubling down on the recursion on this deck. Makes me wonder if this is a Mayfly only Adam deck. We'll have to wait and see, though. This runner may have erred a little bit on the side of over-setting up when they didn't need to. Like, you don't necessarily need the Reclaim installed, you don't necessarily need the Simul Chip installed, or the Brain Chip. But it could have been a scenario where they were at their max hand size, and they needed to play a card in order to take advantage of safety first draw. That's sort of another trouble piece that Adam runs into. You are really incentivized to end every turn sans 1 less than your max. I said that weird. 1 lower than your max hand size, so that you can get card draws. So sometimes you're incentivized to play cards earlier than you want to. Anyway, the card in server 3 was a clearinghouse, which Adam has to trash due to neutralize all threats. So 3 credits down. The card in the other server was a bacterial programming. Adam is very happy to get that since that raises his hand size by 3. But in a sense, I'm sure that Restoring Humanity got some advantage out of that as well, since they can rearrange the top 7 cards of their deck. In fact, not only can they rearrange them, they can draw any of those 7 cards. Corpse turn, click 1, we see a punitive. And the Corp is talking about the catch-22 that is punitive Counter-Strike versus Neurospike. Unfortunately, Adam did not have enough money to fight the double punitive trace. That's just the way it goes sometimes. That's kind of what I mean, though, about over-installing a little bit, perhaps, here. Again, it depends on... We missed the early turn, so it's difficult to say exactly what was happening. But even this extra reclaim, I don't like the extra reclaim. I'm a little confused. Adam stole... Hold on. Let's rewind just a little bit. Adam stole bacterial programming and had another click after stealing it. And then installed Reclaim. No! I just realized that he could have been fine. If you're expecting the punitive, which he did. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, he did. If you're expecting the punitive, he had 1, 2, 3, 4 cards in hand. Imagine this scenario instead, where he doesn't play Reclaim, instead keeps it in hand, and just draws a card instead of playing it. He would go from having 4 cards to 6 cards, and a double punitive wouldn't kill him. That's disappointing. Although, admittedly, the double punitive is a little lucky. The Corp did get to see the top 7 cards of their stack, or their of R&D, so that helped them draw those. But if the Corp didn't have those cards, the win would not be assured. Another option we can analyze a little bit is if the runner was able to do this, they could have not installed the extra Reclaim, not install the Simul chip, not install the Brain chip, and instead clicked for credits, if they had the option to do that. Again, we don't know. Adam was probably playing these cards to get the free card draw. But if it, pardon me, if the opportunity was ever present not to need to play these, they would be up 1. Because keep in mind, installing a card costs a click, which you could have just clicked for a credit. So 1 plus 3, 4 plus 2, 6 credits. It would have been 6 credits up. I don't think the Corp would have had enough money to punitive them. That's why, even though it seems so innocent to take an action in Netrunner that only puts you down a click or 2, that only puts you down a credit or 2, it is exactly those small minor choices that make the difference between winning and losing a game. Well, I wish we could have seen more of that Adam deck, but that's okay. Another game of the night, combination Wu versus Built to Last. We see a lot of cards in the heap already. Eater, Mayfly. Mayfly seems like it fits in pretty well with Wu's style. She can call it, and then it trashes itself, preventing it from removing itself from the game. Anyway, we came in at a pretty pivotal moment of the game, as it looks like Wu successfully apocalypsed Built to Last. We already see a City Works project in archives. And all that ice that was presumably rezzed, I didn't quite catch it. The score is 1-1. Wu has 1 bad pub. The Corp ices HQ, indicating that there are probably agendas in HQ, but they have 24 credits, so whatever that ice is, presumably they can res it. Combination runs R&D, it installs a pawn shop, which is going to let her sell off the face-down cards generated by Apocalypse. In this case, there's only 1. She also Harmony AR therapies to pull some of those cards from the bin back into her stack. Altogether, her deck seems to be around mitigating the downsides of Apocalypse, either letting her sell off the face-down cards and or putting them back into her stack with AR therapy. Anyway, the run on R&D didn't reveal any agendas since nothing was stolen, or at least no agendas that were able to be stolen. SDS drone deployment wouldn't be able to be stolen. In somewhat of an interesting move, the Corp creates a new remote and double advances the ice in front of it. Cabanesa decides to take advantage of the open R&D, goes back in, still doesn't see anything that she can interact with. Draws twice and sure gambles. She was low on credits, but she's creeping up there now, up to 9. No breakers on the table. No cards installed for Aesop's to sell. Corp still has plenty of money, but this scoring window of theirs is closing fast. They put another piece of ice on the remote, drop a card behind the 2 pieces of ice, and advance it once. Now, if Cabaneza has another Mayfly, they could use their ID ability to pull it out and try to run the server, but they need money to do that. So instead, she runs HQ, sees a dedication ceremony, runs R&D, steals a Project Atlas. Not too bad, not too bad. Now, if she runs Archives, you have to think she's got a second Apocalypse. She did shuffle Apocalypse back into her stack with AR Therapy, so it's possible she drew it again. Now there's a pause as she decides what to do. If she runs Archives, the problem is, I think what's holding her back is that if she runs Archives to potentially Apocalypse, she's going to have to steal the CityWorks project, which isn't going to win her the game, but it also is going to mean that Punitives would deal 5 damage if they landed, and the Corp has enough money to land those Punitives. So instead, she does not run Archives, runs R&D, and this is all, of course, assuming that she has an Apocalypse in hand. If she doesn't have an Apocalypse in hand, then it wasn't really much of a choice at all. The Corp scores a single countered Atlas. Back over to Wu, she runs R&D, doesn't see anything, sells a Simul chip, and uses another AR Therapy to get some more of the goods from the heap back into her stack. Aesop's, Creative Commission, Diesel, Overclock, Sure Gamble. No Mayfly. Wonder what the strategy behind that is. We haven't seen any real breakers. I wonder if Mayfly is the only thing this Wu deck uses. Now that would certainly be an interesting concept. You Eater your way through the Centrals to Apocalypse, and you Mayfly whenever there's a single server you need to get into. This is an interesting Wu deck. I kind of like it. I usually don't take a shine to Shaper, but I like this concept. It probably falls to anti-AI, though. Yeah, it definitely falls to anti-AI. Like a Chiashi, a couple IP blocks. That would be rough. Anyway, the Corp puts another card in server 4. Same server that they scored their Atlas out of. They actually even used the Atlas to add Spin Doctor from R&D to HQ. And they put a new piece of ice in front of R&D. Wu takes a turn to just set up a bit, and then back over to the Corp, a new piece of ice also hits in front of R&D, which takes us up to 2. It's advanced once, which for Built to Last is essentially the same thing as a clicking for a credit. Wu installs a Flameout and drops a Mayfly behind it. It's a good move. Flameout's 9 credits, going to allow you to superpower Mayfly. And since Mayfly trashes itself after it's used anyway, you're not really missing out on anything if you spend all those Flameout credits. You can also sell the Flameout if you don't spend all the credits with Aesop's Pawn Shop. Third piece of ice on the remote, Wu installs Misdirection, immediately spec works it, must not be afraid of tags, Makes sense. We haven't really seen any tag synergy here. Probably just a punitive deck. Sure gambles for some money. She's up to 13. Built to Last drops a second hostile takeover. So we're up to 2 bad publicity for Wu. Bad publicity is good if you make successive runs. But there aren't a lot of options here for too many successive runs. And Wu still needs to steal another agenda before she can apocalypse again and be safe from the double punitive. Because again, if she runs archives, steals the CityWorks project, she has to be able to fight 2 traces. Now she does have a decent amount of money, but will it be enough? I'm sure that's something on the forefront of her mind. She runs R&D, Mausolus is rezzed. Mayfly will be the breaker of choice here. Breaking Mausolus with Flameout money. Moving inward towards the second piece of ice on R&D. Let's just see if the Corp wants to use it. No res. That's wise. Again, you're just trying to make Wu spend money, make Wu use her resources. She's already used the Mayfly. She's already used some of the money on Flameout, so Mayfly has to trash itself anyway. Rezzing a second piece of ice probably wouldn't do a whole lot, since the majority of it would be paid with by Flameout's cash anyway. And the Corp needs a credit advantage. So it doesn't want to spend all their money rezzing ice. That's going to lose them money, in addition to potentially getting apocalypsed. Cyberdeck's Virus Suite is the card on top of R&D. It's not paid to break. Or sorry, not paid to trash. Wu hits HQ, sees a punitive. Interestingly, as Wu goes to run archives, the final run for the apocalypse, a Spin Doctor is rezzed, shuffling what appeared to be the CityWorks and another Spin Doctor into R&D, which makes me think that the Court does not have the double punitive, which is unfortunate because that would have been the time to do it. But they must, because I think they had enough money to double punitive. Anyway, Apocalypse is played. Everything is flipped over face down. All the corpse ice goes into the bin. And on the next turn, Built to Last drops a CityWorks, dedication ceremonies it, and advances it once. A slight misplay, since they should have advanced it first to take advantage of their ID ability. But that's fine. The reason behind this, of course, is just that if the runner steals it, they lose several cards. Oh, this is funny. So they lose several cards to steal the CityWorks project, and then, of course, the Corp would just punitive them. However, Combinesa simply runs HQ R&D archives again. And just apocalypses the single CityWorks project. That would have been the game-winning score for the Corp, putting them up to 3 agenda points. Now, though, Wu has a chance. She installs a pawn shop and runs the face down in server 7. Ends up just being a Spin Doctor. Spin Doctor takes the CityWorks out of archives, as well as a dedication ceremony, and puts it back into R&D. Taking the 3-point agenda score potential away from Wu yet again. And she couldn't get in there to take that for fear of the still looming threat of punitive. She then draws twice and passes it back over to the Corp, who ices HQ and advances the already advanced card in server 8, their only remote. Both players kind of reset due to that apocalypse. Advantage being on the side of Wu, though, because the Aesop's pawn shop is just going to sell off all of those face-down cards of hers for free 3 credits each time. The Corp wants to play the same game again before Wu gets too rich. Drops a City Works, double advances it. Wu again stuck with the unenviable position of asking, do I steal this and try to fight the punitive, which she can't really do. Now she could, let's get some quick math here. So it's 2 damage plus 1 additional meat damage per advancement token. So it's 4 meat damage. It's basically an Obokata right now. So Wu would take 4 damage. She could theoretically steal it, draw up twice, and click for a credit. And at that point, it would be up to the Corp to have enough money to punitive her twice when she has 16 credits. Out of the ashes? That's interesting. And you have to wonder what this double advance card is in server 8. Wu decides click 1 to run R&D. Why not? Okay, well there it is. That's the game-winning move. Now she just runs server 9. Steals the final agenda for the win. Very smart. Takes the safe play first. Sees if there is an agenda on the top of R&D. Knowing full well that she only needs 1 more point to win. Prior to stealing the City Works. That was a good game. Probably pretty frustrating to play against, since you're just constantly getting apocalypsed. Apocalypse only 3 influence. Kind of amazing that that card is only 3 influence. Probably should have been 4 or 5. If it was 5, it would have been a lot harder to put 2 of them in the deck. Where's her influence going here? Apocalypse, Eater. What's the simul chips for? Probably just to pull mayflies out of the bin. We do see some real breakers here. Gauss, Nana K. That's our Fractor and Killer. We're missing our Code Gate. Could be Ngolo, could be Unity. Unity wouldn't get quite as much mileage in a deck like this, since your icebreakers aren't sticking around. Poor Waylon. Had plenty of money to threaten the punitive, but just never quite got the right opportunity to do it. Couldn't keep ice on the table just due to the non-stop apocalypsing. Seems like a pretty strong Wu deck. Apocalypse is nothing new, but sort of using it in this way. I mean, Eater into Apocalypse is nothing new. But the Mayfly, I think the Mayfly kicks it up to the next level. Since Mayfly can be used as a real breaker when needed. Essentially accomplishing the same thing the Eater does, only actually allowing access. Steve Cambridge versus Built to Last. Turn 2, standoff is scored. The runner declines to trash anything, so the corp gets the full 5 credits and card draw from standoff. Keep in mind, too, that essentially every time Waylon advances something, they get a net 2 credit gain. Of course, the advancement costs a credit, so they only get to keep 1 real credit, but still a 2 credit tempo gain. Making standoff pretty good in Built to Last. It essentially says, if the runner doesn't trash anything, it says, click 3 times. I'm trying to do math. So you gain 7 credits and a card draw, but you lose 2 credits on the advance plus the 3 clicks. Anyway, Dirty Laundry into Archives, Bravado into R&D, reveals an engram flush. Boomerang is a great tool to use against engram. Engram names program. The runner says, go ahead, fire. Reveals that they only have Tread Lightly, Miss Bones, and Sure Gamble in hand. Again, this is... I understand, I think, why you name program. You think it's a runner, or it's a... Yeah, it's a runner, you know? He has to have programs in hand, right? Wait, what? I'm a little confused. Why was Boomerang lost here? Oh, I see. I see, okay, okay. That was... My apologies for not being on the up and up. The runner encountered a ganked from R&D, which in turn forced the runner to re-encounter a piece of ice. Of course, the only ice that is res right now is Engram Flush. The corp named event, forcing the runner to re-break Engram Flush, or should I say break Engram Flush for the first time using Boomerang. Anyway, what if I'll very quickly complete my train of thought from earlier. You see a runner, you think he must be keeping programs in hand, but I feel like against Criminal, you almost always want to name event. You can get rid of things like diversion of funds, inside job, bravado, you know, even the stray Sure Gamble or daily, or not daily cast, Dirty Laundry would be good. Overall, I think with Engram Flush, you always name event on the first encounter if it's a criminal. Regardless, while I was lost in the ganked madness, the corp managed to score 2 more hostile takeovers. So Cambridge does have 2 bad pub to work with. It's going to make those single iced servers much, much easier to get into once the breakers actually hit the table. Sneak Door Beta was revealed. The Corp overwrites the ice they had on archives, which is a curious move. To install a new piece of ice, they have 21 credits, no small amount of money. And then they create a new remote that has nothing behind it. The runner I've had worses, which is an interesting include in criminal. Sure gambles, installs Begalter, sneak doors into archives, sees a sentry, breaks out with Begalter and gets into HQ due to the sneak door run. Accesses a send the message, which allows Tithonium to be rezzed at no cost. A new piece of ice in front of HQ may indicate that there are agendas in HQ. This Cambridge deck runs all the card draw. I've had worse and Diesel splashing outside of the faction for just so much card draw. Tread Lightly runs into HQ. Afshar rezzed, costing 6 credits. No ability to break that. That's going to be the runner losing 2 credits and an end to run. Cambridge up to 19 credits, though, doesn't care too much about that. Corp scores another standoff. We lost one of these standoffs. I'm not sure how. We didn't lose it on the send a message res, because that's res without cost. You can see here it is. This standoff is in the remove from game section. Anyway, the runner declines to trash anything due to standoff. So it is added to the corp score area with 5 more credits and a card draw attached. The runner drops Penny Shaver for future runs to generate those credits. Corp double draws and hedge funds is going to have to discard 2 cards from hand. Putting 3 cards face down in archives. Cambridge Diesels. Oh, this is the new art for Archer. That's where we lost the first standoff. Anyway, gets through Archer with Begalter through a sneak door beta run into HQ, sees an SDS drone deployment, spends their sneak door to steal that, and then drops an Amina, signifying that they can now get through the code gates that are protecting HQ and R&D. Corp still has 19 credits, draws twice again. Must be looking for something. They've been spending a lot of time drawing lately. What are they looking for? They create another new remote. How weird. The runner draws, plays Bravado. Amina has a somewhat favorable, a fairly favorable boost and break ratio against Engram Flush. 4 credits, and the Corp loses a credit in the process. Gets into R&D, trashes an NGO front, and drops Tapworm. Since the Corp does have 18 credits, Tapeworm is going to generate 3 credits a turn. Pretty good. Oh, this is fantastic. The Corp might have been drawing for their arc lockdown, since they draw yet again and use it to remove all copies of Paperclip from the game, immediately installing a card in Server 5. However, Cambridge responds by playing Inside Job to bypass the Tithonium that he no longer has the Paperclip to get into. However, it's a ganked. Ganked forces an encounter on the Tithonium. What a clever move. That is brutal. Oh my goodness. And in one fell swoop, Cambridge loses everything. Everything. He loses his Paperclip from the bin. He's forced to encounter Tithonium without a Paperclip. He spent the Inside Job for nothing. He loses his 7 to install Amina, his Bugalter, and his Turning Wheel. He has nothing. Nothing except a bit of cash coming in from cards like Tapeworm and Penny Shaver. Now, Engram Flush is porous. So he runs into R&D. Again, I don't like this. The Corp names program. There are no programs. Okay, there's one program. In the runner's hand. I think the Corp did that because they're really trying hard to lock the runner out. They really don't want them to have more programs, but I don't think Cambridge runs more than one copy of any of his breakers. I say that. There's 2 Bugalters in here. And an Amina is dropped. Look at me. I'm made a fool of. But that's fine. So, okay. Naming program, I suppose, had some logic behind it. But I feel like, again, there were some pretty tasty events in here. 3 copies of Diversion of Funds. 3. Could have just blown up. And you see there, the Corp is actually triple icing HQ, disincentivizing those Diversion of Funds running. Now, does Cambridge run a second copy of Paperclip? If not, he's going to have to rely exclusively on boomerangs to get him through any barriers. Whew. Okay, so here we go. A bravado run into R&D. Post-boomeranging the outermost piece of ice. Boomerang at least going to be able to prevent 2 of Tithonium subroutines, but all of Tithonium subroutines are relevant. They're all strong. I would imagine that the... No, my goodness. I was going to say, I would imagine that the Trash 1 resource and End the Run was going to be the one that was allowed to be fired, but no, it is the Trasher program. The Corp trashes the Amina. Engram Flush is, again, porous. The Corp names event. All of the Diversion of Funds are trashed. Oh, did I thought there were 3. Oh, you only get to trash 1 of the... For some reason, I thought it was all. No, that would just be silly. Why would there be 2 subroutines then? Okay, so each reveal of Engram Flush allows you to trash 1 of the named type. So Cambridge does get into R&D for 1 final access, 1 final chance at victory. Doesn't find the agenda, and at this point he's got nothing. He's got money, and that's about it. No breakers, lost the second copy of Amina, doesn't have another copy of Bugalter, I would assume. No Diversion of Funds, not that they could be used anyway. And so the runner concedes, acknowledging that at this point he's locked out. Was there anything more he could have done? Probably not. Paperclip was probably a one-of. Especially with all this influence spent on card draw. Let's count it here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12. I think maybe we can assume there's another, maybe a third copy of I've Had Worse, which would be 13, 14, and maybe a third copy of Turning Wheel. Although 3 Turning Wheels is a bit excessive. So it might not be a Turning Wheel, it might be something else. Oh, of course. The Paperclip. So yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well, I mean, the Cambridge has an extra 2. No, I'm thinking of Ken. Yeah, so that's all the influence accounted for. He has no other copy of Paperclip. The only server he could even hope to get through would be HQ. But I'm sure... Well, no, he can't even get into HQ. Because both of his Aminas are gone. Afshar has a hard to end the run. Yeah, I mean, that's that. He is completely locked out. Haven't seen a lot of that ever since, oh, what was that scary Wayland ID? Oh, what was it called? No, we don't want sets. We want IDs. Is ID not a type? I feel like I'm failing miserably at this. Agenda asset event hardware ice identity. Identity is here. Is it called an identity when it's the corp? Yeah, okay. Scorpios. That was the really scary one. The existence of Scorpios made it almost impossible to play decks with a single copy of your Icebreaker without recursion. And even in decks where you had recursion, you had to watch out for the Arc Lockdown. Now you just have to watch out for the Arc Lockdown. And I love that this random Wayland deck used it. I feel like it keeps runners honest. Paperclip and bin breakers in general, if you're Anarch, are so popular. But keeping a single copy of Arc Lockdown on hand in your deck keeps runners honest. Of course, it does come at the cost of 2 influence, though, if you're outside of HB. But this person decided to pay that cost, and it paid off for them. Won them the game. What the? Oh, this is a... We won't watch this one. This is a starter deck game. Alright, turn 5, Smoke versus Reality Plus. Misdirection already on the table. It's going to be a blow to any kind of hard-hitting news plays. Penny Shaver. Everyone's using Penny Shaver these days. No... what's that card called? It's Smoke's card. It's the one that generates tokens. I'll know it when I see it. Something mirror recursive. Oh well. It's interesting that she's using telework contract though. When you sell this resource, load 9 credits onto it. When it is empty, trash it. Click, take 3 credits from this resource, use this on ability. Only once per turn? Kind of seems like a worse... Well, maybe not worse. Seems like a different take on Armitage. Anyway, Reality Plus is playing asset spam. Has a Maryland and 4 unknown remotes, as well as a 6th remote that has a San City grid in it and a mystery card. Smoke may be feeling a little bit out of her element. Kind of just draws up. The card in server 1 is double advanced, and a Beal is stolen. Sorry, scored for 1 advancement less, thanks to the San City grid. Now, Smoke does have a Bologna, and she might be afraid of running because she doesn't have a ton of money, doesn't want to get punitive or hard-hitting news, but she's got the misdirection, so hard-hitting news is not scary. There it is, Netrunner, that's the card. Netrunner is going to let her generate those stealth credits. She runs server 9, which just ends up being a Spin Doctor. Spin Doctor is res to get the card draw, but it's not popped. Smoke decides not to trash it. She only has 3 credits, probably wants to save that money for something more useful. Potentially even just shaking a misdirection. Sorry, shaking a set of 4 tags from hard-hitting news with misdirection. She runs another face down and sees Lady Liberty. Now, she is generating Penny Shaver credits on those runs, so not all is lost. Spin Doctor popped to shuffle a couple cards back into R&D. Jenkins. It's not Jenkins. Jeeves model Byroid. It's Jeeves's slightly less popular cousin, Jenkins model Byroids. Anyway, triple install from the Corp triggers Jeeves' ability. Why can I keep calling it Jeeves? No, it is Jeeves. Jeeves, not Jenkins. Allowing them to play hard-hitting news. 4 tags goes over to Smoke, who penny shavers for a bit of money, draws a card, and then shakes all those tags with misdirection. Still sets her back a little bit, but misdirection definitely keeping her in it. The problem is she's still on the back foot of the tempo of the game. NBN is just gaining all of this advantage from these resed assets, even a daily business show and a Nico campaign, and they still have 10 credits even after all of that. The Corp scores an AR enhanced security, which kind of like evaporated? I don't see it. Oh, it looks like... Okay, so this is a common scenario that is a little tricky to play with. Even in person, this can be a little tricky to play with. The SMC clot interaction, or in our case, these days it can also be the simulchip clot interaction if it's in the bin, which it's not. Oh, no, it is. Yeah. So clot was in the bin, simulchip was on the table. The Corp drops... What did they install that this turn? Yeah, they drop a card in server 1, double advance it, and score it. The problem is that there was a window when Smoke should have had a chance to simulchip the clot out. And the common way to do that is anytime you advance a card once while the San City grid is on the table, you ask the runner action, question mark. And that's to indicate you're giving them a chance to use Clot. The problem is that even asking action gives away information, potentially. Because what if the card in server 1 was just an NGO front? You typically wouldn't think of installing an NGO front, advancing it once, and then asking action. But once Clot enters the game, that becomes the standard line of play. You then have to treat everything you advance as if it's an agenda. You have to ask action after everything that you advance. Especially back in the day when hard-hitting news was an NBN, so you could score an agenda out of hand with nothing under it, no Sansan under it. So you had to install a card, advance once, ask action, even if it wasn't an agenda. So that way you didn't give away any information to the runner. Because otherwise, if you only ask when it's an agenda, it's too much of a tell. Anyway, one of them conceded. I didn't catch which one. Oh my goodness, we see Sunny. We saw Adam earlier. Now we're going to see Sunny. Okay, we're on turn 3. Card behind server 2 was advanced twice, and then Jeeves. Okay, so the card was triple advanced. Jeeves gave a click. Mirror Morph. No, this is Asa. Okay. And then Luminol was scored, which gave even more clicks to install more stuff, including another card to replace the Luminol in the same server, advanced once, and a new piece of ice on the outside. The runner runs R&D and HQ, and HQ again sees a Nico campaign. No, sorry, it doesn't run HQ twice. That's silly. Runs R&D once, runs HQ once, sees a Nico campaign. Third click runs the remote, hits an Eli, but is able to break that with Amakua at 6. Hits a Gatekeeper, but it doesn't matter. Wow, because this Amakua is at 6 strength, is able to even break the Gatekeeper. That's impressive. Somewhere along the way, Sunny was hard-hitting news, which is kind of funny, considering that Sunny is the most anti-trace runner in the game. But she's just playing with all those tags. It makes sense. The Corp is poor. Even spending 2 credits and a click to trash data folding is really expensive for the Corp right now. The Corp puts another card behind their double-resed Ice remote server, puts a card in front of HQ as well as a card in front of R&D. It is just a Nico campaign, so Sunny isn't pressured to get in there. But the problem is Ace is getting a lot of tempo just in general out of Jeeves here, getting kind of an extra click each turn. Sunny dropped a scrubber on the turn before that, but apparently Asa wanted to get rid of all of Sunny's cards, clicks twice to trash both the data folding and the scrubber, going down to 2 credits. Sunny recognizing now that the Corp can't really res anything on 2 credits, runs R&D, clicks for a credit, and runs the Jeeves. Trashes the Jeeves, which is very expensive, but it prevents those super turns where the Corp is just getting a lot of forward tempo out of everything. The Corp aces server 1 and puts their final card from HQ on archives. Sunny kind of just needs to score 1 3-pointer to win the game, assuming that the Corp uses 3-pointers. runs R&D, hits a slot machine, breaks it with Amakua, sees a violet level clearance, trashes it for 1 credit, passes it back over to the Corp. Finally, though, the Corp kind of deals a pretty heavy blow against Sunny by purging. However, Sunny doesn't have any money, which means that Slot Machine kind of loses its sting. She runs R&D. Only the first subroutine fires. The runner loses 3 credits, which does nothing. Whatever card on R&D wasn't able to be interacted with, Sunny follows that up with a double draw and a click for a credit. Is there even anything that Sunny has to spend that credit on? We'll have to find out. Corp reinforces R&D, realizing that Slot Machine is porous, realizing that Sunny can still eke out a victory if she gets into R&D. It is revealed that Sunny did have a card she can play for a low number of credits. She drops Deuces Wild to gain money and draw, and installs a Rozeki to at least have some form of long-term income. The problem is, this Rozeki is not going to pay for itself until 3 turns after it was installed. I don't know if Sunny's going to live that long. We'll have to see. She runs R&D not before installing a security chip, which boosts the strength of an icebreaker for each link that Sunny has. It's enough to break Drafter. She hits Slot Machine, reveals event resource. That's going to allow Slot Machine to fire the top 2 subroutines. Sunny loses her remaining money, and the Corp gains 3 credits. Unfortunately, though, again, whatever card was on the top of R&D, not something she could do anything with. Clicks for 2 credits and passes it back to the Corp. Sunny has to keep kind of playing around with this Amakua that's slowly building up strength. If she can somehow find another counter on it, it can break the Drafter reliably. Corp installing 2 cards in both of their remotes. Sorry, a card each in both of their remotes. Fully operationals for a bit of money and card draw. Sunny just takes another turn to double draw, clicks for some money. Will the Corp purge? Or will they simply advance the cards in server 1 or 2? They've rezzed a lot of Nico campaigns. 2 of them, I believe. And they've gotten some money from fully operational, but even all that money has left them with only 8 credits. And you have to wonder, why was there a hard-hitting news in ASA? I feel like I never addressed that. Why is there a hard-hitting news in ASA? Is there a boom somewhere in the deck? I have to assume that that would be the case. But you don't typically expect hard-hitting news out of ASA. Third ice on server 2 and an advancement of the card in server 2 kind of suggests that that's an agenda. With only a gatekeeper protecting it, as well as an Eli, Sunny could get in there with just clicks and Amakua. She runs HQ. There's no res on the card protecting HQ, which kind of signifies that the Corp wants to save that money to res the outermost piece of ice on server 2. Instead of contesting that card, Sunny instead decides to go for R&D. Now that her Amakua has 3 tokens, she can break Drafter normally. We'll have to see what Slot Machine reveals. 2 events, double subroutine fires. Sunny just lets that fire, so the Corp gains 3, she loses 3. She manages to snag Global Food Initiative off the top of R&D. Potentially meaning she has a chance to win the game. She has a game point. She runs back into R&D, has enough money to still break Drafter. Slot Machine only reveals 1 of each subtype this time. She gets into R&D, but there's no agenda on the top. Jeeves is revealed, allowing the Corp to quadruple click the global food for the win. It was a close game. It was a weird game. Even the runner is asking what the heck the tags are for. The Corp literally just says, for trashing resources. That's insane. I don't know of anyone who puts hard-hitting news in the deck just to trash resources. I mean, I guess it did allow the Corp to trash Scrubber and Data Folding. Scrubber wasn't super relevant, though. There wasn't a whole lot of cards that were being trashed. Violet level clearance was trashed. Jeeves was trashed. Potentially the Nico campaigns could have been trashed at some point, but they weren't. Yeah, I think even if you don't run tag punishment, you probably could scare a lot of runners into just shaking those tags. Just because being tagged in general is so scary. But it was kind of weird, though, just overall. Even though this was a Sunny ID, we didn't really see her doing very many Sunny things. She security chipped her Amakua. I think that was the only Sunny thing we got to see her do. But even that was interesting. Security chipping an Amakua makes a certain level of sense. It means if your Amakua is low strength, you can boost it by 2 when needed. It's also instant speed, so you could run a server, realize that you need the strength while encountering the ice, and still pop security chip for that extra 2 strength. Renee versus Precision Design. Ice Ice Hedge Fund. Sure Gamble and Verbal Plasticity. Kind of like a weird once per turn, I almost want to call it like a pro-con, but it's not quite a pro-con. It just double draws once per turn. Corp quick to create a new remote with a card behind it. Already has 13 credits due to the double hedge fund. Pretty good. Corp is in a rather commanding position right off the bat. Is able to protect all of their centrals and the remote. Of course, Renee is going to want to get into those centrals and trash things. Presumably with Imp eventually. Card behind server 1 is just a Spin Doctor, though. Used to draw 2 extra cards. Will we shuffle the double hedge funds back into R&D? No, it looks like we're going to create a new server. As well as putting more protection on HQ. Now, of course, you'll know I enjoy saying that icing HQ is indicative of agendas in HQ. That might not be the case this time. Could be the Corp is simply anticipating Renee using Imp and wants to preemptively make it difficult to get into HQ to protect their operations from Imp. Renee verbal plasticities for an extra card. Dirty laundries into archives for a bit of money. It's interesting that the Corp decided to keep this Spin Doctor res. We'll have to see if that's ever relevant. Feeling a bit bold, Renee runs on click 3 into archive, sees a Tithe. Tithe will deal a net damage. In addition to gaining the corporate credit, effectively making the res cost of Tithe 0 the first time. Renee does make it into R&D and trashes a San City grid raw. Just straight up with regular credits. That's expensive. I understand the sentiment. I suppose it is discounted a bit, though, due to Renee's ability. He gains a credit and draws a card off that. But he is down to 4 credits. The Corp red level clearance to draw 2 cards and gain a click. It's usually indicative that they're looking for combo pieces. Install a card in server 2 in order to trigger fully operational 3 times, in which case they draw a total of 4 cards, gain 2 credits back. Just a lot of card draw going on here. Gotta remember that Precision Design has an extra hand size, so they can get away with having an extra card in HQ. Hansei reviews for another 5 credits. They're up to 17. They've got some money. Renee doesn't even install a breaker, just decides to drop Conduit and goes right into R&D. Steals a Mega Pre qualifier off the top, goes right back in. We're going to see 2 new cards thanks to Conduit. Every time they run through R&D, they're losing a card from their grip, and the Corp is gaining a credit, but I don't know how much they care. Steals a Project Vitruvius, goes into R&D a 3rd time on their last click, losing another card from hand, paying the Corp another credit, but now going to see 3 cards, 2 of them new, I believe. No more agendas. And now, the Corp has to kind of bite their nails a little bit, since there is a 3 virus tokened Conduit on the table, and a very porous R&D. In response, they ice R&D with a second piece of ice, advance the card in server 2 twice. They've got the money to res these things. Renee does not have a lot of money right now. So, chances are, Precision Design is not bluffing here. This ice is threatening. Renee will need some way to deal with it. Buzzsaw was lost from hand. Was probably worth it, though, assuming that more than one copy of a code break of a decoder is found in Renee's deck. Botulus is also revealed here in the heap. So there's always the opportunity to break ice even without the proper breaker. Simulchip is revealed, so now we know that if needed, Renee can pull back some of these cards from the bin. Corp scores a Mega Pre qualifier out of server 2. It is worth 2 agenda points because there is already 1 copy of Mega Pre scored or stolen. It exists in one of the player's score areas, I believe is how the wording is. Renee took their last turn to, oh no, it's still the Corp's turn. That score happened on click 1. They red level for a bit of money. Put a new card in server 2 and a new piece of ice. An additional piece of ice, protecting that remote. Renee Renee now has to decide whether they can afford to keep setting up, potentially allowing the Corp to score the card in server 2 if it is an agenda. Or do they recklessly charge in somewhere, forcing money to be spent on reses? They drop a cleaver, which is a fractor. Problem is, the outermost piece of ice on RD, which they just ran, is Enigma. It's going to lose the runner their last click, in addition to ending the run. Buzzsaw would have been, of course, preferable in that situation, but sometimes you just got to take a gamble and guess. At least there's no long-lasting effects from that run. No tags, no punitives hanging over the runner's head or anything like that. Sansan is res, though, for 6 credits. And a Luminous Transubstantiation is scored. Corp has 3 more credits to play around, try and figure out what they want to do here. They play another fully operational, drawing more cards, gaining 2 credits, gaining 2 credits. So even though they dropped down to 5 credits in order to score that Luminal, they're back up to 13. Partially due to the card draw, I'm sure they drew a Hansei review, I'm guessing. Plays the Hansei review, up to 13 credits. Doesn't even have to worry about that last click. Doesn't even need to click for credits, just draws another card. Renee getting a lot of loot use out of their verbal plasticity that was sold pretty early in the game. They've used it nearly every turn. If a card draw is worth a credit, which is probably worth a little more than a credit, really. But if a card draw is worth a credit, the 4th time you use verbal plasticity, it pays for itself. They decide to install a buzzsaw and an imp and run the remote, going hard into that remote to get that Sansan out of there. That makes a lot of sense. The Corp has already invested the 6 credits into resing it. Now is the perfect time to trash that Sansan, and to do it for free with an imp and trigger your ID ability. Very good. Magnet is res, but Buzzsaw can break Magnet for just a single credit. Palisade is resed. Cleaver, a little more expensive to break. 3 credits to break Palisade. Gets in, trashes that Sansan with imp. Goes back over to the Corp, who decides to purge. And that makes sense, I think. You're getting rid of the imp token. You're getting rid of the conduit tokens. I think that's a good time to purge. You've got rezzed ice. You probably have enough money to protect HQ if needed by rezzing the ice that's already on HQ. Renee's down to 5 credits. Yeah, I think that purge makes sense. Oh, we lost our corp. Well, let's see if they reconnect. Could simply be a problem with their connection. Laptop battery ran out. Definitely seems like a random time to have a disconnect. This leaves us a bit of time, though, to weigh the two sides against each other. It is 4-3. Fairly even. We don't know if there are any 3-pointers in the deck. If there were, the corp could potentially be on game point. Otherwise, both sides are 2 agendas away from winning. Palisade is where it should be, on the remote. Corp seems to favor somewhat cheaper ice, choosing instead to spend the bulk of their money on Sansan Grid. Fully operational, giving them card draw, allowing them to stock their hand full of cards to do things like Hansei review. Hansei review, of course, forcing you to pitch a card from HQ. Is that worth it? I've been seeing a lot of people playing Hansei review these days. It probably is worth it, to be honest. Like, just straight up getting money as the corp is almost always good. You just always have to have a card that you were willing to get rid of. But due to the corp's use of, just fully operational, getting those cards into hand, red level clearance, helping with that as well. Yeah, the extra money that Precision Design had seemed to be going straight to Sansan reses, which seemed to be doing them pretty well. I think it was a pretty close game. The runner went ahead and conceded, since it doesn't look like the corp is reconnecting. But with the runner having lost all of their virus tokens, a lot of the wind was taken out of their sails. And they didn't have a ton of money either. So I think the corp had a pretty good fighting chance to win this. Ice Carver is a little impressive. It does seem like the runner was having fun with this deck, using the newer icebreakers that are disincentivized to be boosted. It's a little bit like Mimic. Kind of. But they're not quite fixed strength breakers. They're just breakers that you really don't want to pay to boost. Like, Buzzsaw is 3 credits to boost 1 strength. That's pretty rough. But it's there, just in case you need it. They're fun design. Okay, Kit Peddler versus the outfit. Dirty laundry into archives. Cyber Trooper Talut signifies that where you want to install programs on a regular basis, DZMZ Optimizer supports that idea. Some kind of strategy that involves installing perhaps an icebreaker each turn. Will it be a London Library deck? We'll have to just wait and see. Corp has a card behind a remote, piece of ice, and double advance. It is the outfit, so wouldn't surprise me if they want to run hard and fast. No bad publicity yet. Angola makes an appearance, although 5 credits is an expensive install. Will the runner take a chance? Yeah, well, it's not much of a chance because your kit, the first piece of ice you encounter, is already converted into a code gate. Talut giving Angolo +2 strength. She runs HQ. It is a trebuchet. 7 credits to res, but giving a bad pub to the runner. 3 credits gained by the outfit, effectively discounting trebuchet down to a 4 credit res cost. Trebuchet fires, it looks like. Trashes Ngolo. It makes it so the runner can't actually access anything. Send a message. Oh my goodness. Send a message is scored. Another trebuchet is rezzed. Kit attaches an egret to the trebuchet on HQ, but I don't know why. I don't know what that accomplishes. She's already going to convert the first piece of ice she encounters into a code gate anyway. She has no breakers on the table. Regardless, the outfit drops another card in their remote, advances it once, and reinforces that with a second piece of ice. Kit shows her SMC, runs the remote on click 3, sees a border control, will have to SMC for a barrier breaker. It has to hope that that second piece of unresed ice is not a non-barrier that has a hard end the run subroutine. Or it's just another barrier. Okay. She has Kit though, so she installs a second Ngolo. It has a whopping 8 strength. Why does it have 8 strength? Oh, I see. They accidentally boosted the strength instead of actually breaking the subroutines, but that's fine. Encounters the second piece of ice. Unfortunately, it is a Whoredom. I don't know how much Kit can really do. Oh, what am I thinking? Whoredom is a code gate. I kept thinking that Kit would need a barrier breaker installed, but no, Angolo is a code gate breaker, a decoder. So it gets through the border control, breaks through the Whoredom. The Corp actually just had a hostile takeover behind that server. So they incentivize Kit to run through, pay to break. The Corp could have ended the run with border control, decides not to, says it's just a one-pointer. Not a big deal to me. Kit takes a turn to set up. Telework contract, Rozeki. Rashida revealed in server 1, draws 3. Gains 3 credits as well. Corp has a lot of cards in hand. 3 clicks to play them, though. Third ice on the remote. New card in the server. And another piece of ice on R&D. That seems a bit strange. Why would the Corp spend so much time installing all this ice and dropping down to 4 credits? Makes me think that the card in server 1 isn't an agenda? Or maybe it's another... Well, it probably isn't send a message. They wouldn't have the money or the time to score it. Kit makes a run on HQ with Docklands pass. It's going to be 2 cards accessed, assuming she gets through the Trebuchet. She can with Angolo. Sees an archive memories and a dedication ceremony. Not really cards she cares about. Card in server 1 is double advanced. It's another hostile takeover. That explains why the Corp wasn't too worried about their money situation. They go from having 4 credits up to 12. Replacing the scored hostile takeover with a new card. Now with 12 credits, it's a little harder for Kit to know what to do. She might just run right back into HQ, but no, instead actually uses Kushik. After having installed Geber Selassie onto Angolo, allowing Angolo to maintain its strength. During the entire run, effectively giving it the Gordian Blade treatment. Corp has assigned whether they want to res the outermost piece of ice or not. They don't. Trebuchet is turned into a code gate by Kit's ID ability. Trebuchet broken for a measly 4 credits. Seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards off the top of R&D. Chooses to access the City Works project for 3 credits. There's another City Works project, also hidden among those cards. However, after the Kushik run, Corp shuffles R&D. Corp archive memories to pull a government subsidy to gain 5 more credits. Follows it up with a punitive, and I believe that might be game. Punitive going to deal 3 damage. Kid only had 2 cards in hand. Punitive, man. It's everywhere these days. I think we're definitely in a punitive meta. Although against Wayland, I mean, it's in faction. Overall, though, Kit was pretty close to winning. I don't think the Corp could have double punitive, so she just had another card in hand. If she just hadn't installed the Egret, the fatal mistake, she'd had that Egret in hand. I am a little curious why the Egret was installed, though, in all seriousness. I feel like that should have been saved for when it was really needed. Because Kit is going to convert the first piece of ice she runs into a code gate anyway. And Golo can also convert something into a code gate. It just kind of seemed like the Egret wasn't needed. I also wonder why there were 2 copies at least of Cyber Trooper Talut. Might have just been to synergize with the Kushik. Since we have 1, 2 Rizekis, Docklands Pass, DZMZ, and Talut, totaling for 6 cards. That's only 5 cards. Hold on. 3, 4, 5. How did Kushik see 6? Choose a number greater than 0 for each installed card you have with the printed cost. Reveal 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, the Egret. Okay. Maybe that's why the Egret was installed. It was what allowed the Kushik to see the full 6 cards. So Talut and Egret might be in here literally just to power Kushik. Kind of funny, though, the simplicity of how punitive can just end games. It doesn't take much, just a bit of meat damage. Knock the Corp off balance. Same kit, this time versus Precision Design. Precision Design playing very aggressive, creates a new remote, doesn't even bother icing the centrals. Kit, Diesels, Rizekis, Teleworks, and Creative Commissions to gain some of that money back. It's the power of Creative Commission. Play that on 1 credit, and you're just fine. Of course, she had 2, I think. Yeah. In an interesting move, the Corp still doesn't protect the centrals. Creates a second remote and puts a pad campaign behind it. This signifies to me that this is a fully operational deck. I think Hospiroid wants many servers and then is going to use fully operational to gain drawn money. Kit drops plasticity. Again, the earlier you can put that down, the better. As well as daily cast, indicating she has no intention of running these completely free and open remotes. I feel like it's a bit of a wasted opportunity. I know you need to set up, I know you need to get these money cards ticking down, but I feel like this is free real estate. You could at least run R&D. Anyway, the card in server 1 ended up being a Luminal Transubstantiation, scored and allowing the Corp 3 clicks to do whatever they want with. They could just simply click for 3 credits to gain some of that money back, but no. They install a card back into server 1. In general, doing something with those clicks, aside from clicking for three credits, is generally considered better. Card in server 1 ends up being a Spin Doctor, res immediately for the card draw, but to see if Precision drew anything they actually want to use. Now they're going to ice the centrals, icing HQ and clicking for a credit. I love this because Precision Design is moving very quick here and aggressive. Reading, perhaps, that their opponent is Shaper. Shapers tend to set up. They tend to take quite a bit of time setting up in general. Kit draws, teleworks, installs a second Rozeki, runs R&D, last click. Potentially a little risky, but you don't really expect traps out of HB. So she's probably safe doing that on the last click. Corp gets that last important central iced up. So we have 4 single iced servers. 2 of them being centrals. Second piece of ice to protect the pad campaign. Why, though? Unless you plan on overwriting the pad campaign and using that server as a scoring server. That seems a little weird. I wonder what the logic behind that is. There must be something. Kit Bravado's in HQ. If you would expect, though, one of these 2 servers to be used as a scoring server, you would think it would be the Spin Doctor server, since Spin Doctor will remove itself from the game eventually anyway. But okay, White Space's res is the new neutral code gate. It basically only has 1 subroutine if the runner. It only has 1 subroutine if the runner has more than 6 credits after breaking the first subroutine. However, Kit has nothing, so they just hit White Space, lose 3 credits, and that's so tragic because they were at 6 credits exactly, which is the threshold for the second subroutine ending the run. They do get 3 credits back, though, from Bravado. So in a way, they kind of nothing lost, nothing gained. They lose the click. They gain the information of knowing what ice is on HQ now. They decide to do a second Bravado run, this time into the Spin Doctor server. Potentially maybe desiring to fire a suboptimal Spin Doctor that only pulls back a hedge fund. Or maybe even just getting in and trashing it. The ice protecting the Spin Doctor, though, is a Hagen, which is res and forces a bounce, and unfortunately trashes a Rozeki. He does trash a non-icebreaker, technically not an icebreaker, a non-decoder fractor killer program. So Kit does get stung a little bit there, loses the Rozeki. Still gains 3 credits from Bravado, though. Total, of course, after paying the 3 to use it. Makes a run on R&D and finds an Architect deployment test. That's good. They needed to get something back after losing that Rozeki. Recognizing the Corp was on 0 credits, they get into R&D. They do get a 4-2 for their troubles, tying the game up 2-2. Kit is definitely still in this. Especially when you look at the credit differential. Again, losing out Rozeki sucks, but it's not the end of the world. She still has 15 credits. Corp only had 4 credits before playing a predictive planogram. That is a strange include. It kind of functions like a anonymous tip slash beanstalk royalty, but you can do both if the runner is tagged. Are there any tags in this deck, or is this card literally just used for card draw or money whenever needed? We'll have to wait to find out. Kit takes a turn off to keep setting up. Teleworks drops Ngolo and Simulchip. Corp stalls a bit. Draws a card, Spin Doctor's Hedge Fund and Predictive Planogram into R&D, and puts a card behind the rezzed Hagen. They only have 5 credits to their name. Again, I'm super curious why the pad campaign saw that second piece of ice. I feel like, you know, we're in the prime position now that Spin Doctor is out of this server, to use this as a scoring remote. And then, interestingly, an upgrade was added at some point to R&D. I'm not sure when that happened. I think I missed that. We'll have to see what that upgrade is eventually. Kit, though, has already shown she has the Ngolo. The Corp must know that she can get into server 1 if needed. She draws a card, sure gambles, and then third click runs into Hagen. Hagen does have high strength, though, due to the fact that Kit doesn't have the other 2 icebreakers installed. If she even runs them, she might literally only run Ngolo. So Hagen is going to be a 5 strength decoder. What am I saying? A 5 strength barrier converted to a code gate with Kit's ability. I guess no matter what, though, Hagen is still going to need to be boosted once by Ngolo, so the extra strength doesn't even matter. It's kind of sad. Because even if Hagen was down to 3 strength, Ngolo would still cost the same amount of money to break. Anyway, she gets into the server and sees a Nico campaign. Goes ahead and trashes that. Doesn't want to give the runner, or sorry, the Corp. Kit doesn't want to give the Corp any options for getting more money. Wants to keep the Corp low on credits. Biotic Labor used after a card is dropped behind the Hagen, but that might have been a misplay because this seems a bit weird. I think that was just a misplay in general. Yeah, so the card in server 1 was double advanced. The Corp didn't have any money. So they literally biotic labored just to draw a card. This is either the biggest mind game ever, or it was an honest mistake. The Corp saying that they need to fix their deck's economy. And they concede. So yeah, that probably was an agenda. At that point, they felt that the game was probably over. They just didn't have enough money. Indeed, we don't see a ton of money coming out of them. I think the pad campaign was nice. It certainly paid for itself and was doing its best to keep generating just a little bit of money for the Corp each turn. And if Kit wanted to stop that, she'd have to break in and pay 4 credits. Admittedly, though, Kit was pretty rich, 21 credits, in spite of losing the Rozeki. I think at this point, the Corp probably had lost. Kit was going to be able to get into all these servers. She really wasn't going to have any trouble. Plus, if the server won, card was an agenda, she was that much closer to winning. Cambridge versus Earth Station. Penny Shaver and a Bravado right into HQ. Border control revealed. Rez, keeping Cambridge out. Run on R&D doesn't reveal anything useful. Rashida is the card in the remote. Some tempo gained on the side of Earth Station. Quite a bit of action already, even just by turn 2. I like it, though. Cambridge's move was aggressive, but it gave them information, and because the run was a bravado run, it also gave them a bit of money. Penny Shaver getting the token from running R&D. Corp ices R&D, creates a new remote, and puts another piece of ice on HQ. That makes a certain level of sense, though. You are playing against Criminal. You gotta expect the diversion of funds. You gotta keep them guessing, right? You don't want to let Cambridge just install a barrier breaker and then start diversion of fundsing you. One piece of ice makes diversion of funds less good. 2 pieces of ice generally makes diversion of funds kind of a bad idea. Corp continuing to pump up this empty remote. Cambridge drops a red team, which is kind of like the Temujin contract replacement, sort of, except you have to keep running different remotes. They run archives for a bit of money, run R&D also for a bit of money. And you got to think every time they're doing this and getting a successful run, they're also getting Penny Shaver money. However, the Corp reses the ice on R&D, which is a Mausolus. Cambridge plows into that, takes a net damage, loses their big altar, shakes the tag that Mausolus gives them. I love that the Cambridge is playing an active game here. Yes, they're losing a little bit here and there. You know, they allowed border control to fire, which gave a credit back to the Corp due to the subroutine. They took a net damage, they took a tag, but they're getting information. They're forcing action out of the Corp. And they're slowly eking pieces of things here. Security testing was dropped. Security testing run on archives using red team. Mausolus res, though. All that money came from Too Big to Fail, allowing the Corp to actually pay for that Mausolus. However, that one bad pub may eventually come into play once some breakers hit the table. Same play as before, though. Cambridge gets in, gets the security testing money, gets the red team money, puts a counter on Penny Shaver, loses, though, 1 diversion of funds to the Mausolus net damage, shakes the tag manually. I'm sure the Corp is very happy to see the loss of diversion of funds. Card installed in server 2. Hedge fund played to keep the money up. Cambridge Deuces Wild for card and money. Saul's Boomerang, DreamNet. Boomerang's a Mausolus. Punches out the last two subroutines, surely. So Mausolus will gain the Corp 1 credit. Dirty Laundry's in. Doesn't even bother red teaming. DreamNet draws a card. Boomerang shuffled back into the stack. I'm seeing a lot of people running DreamNet. DreamNet isn't bad. It's just that, again, if we're equating a card draw to a click, which again, a card draw is, again, like sort of worth more than a click or a credit. I mean, it depends. At its worst, a card draw is worth a click, is worth a credit. So at its worst, it takes DreamNet 4 fires before it pays for itself. If you're not digital with 2-link, if you're not digital or you have 2-link. Anyway, a card in server 2 is installed, double advanced. Want to see if this is an agenda or just a fancy ploy. Seems like the right time for an agenda. Cambridge chooses not to contest this. Just gets some money and actually takes the Penny Shaver credits. Back over to the Corp. If this was a 5-3, you'd kind of expect them to just score it out. They advance the card once, and then they too big to fail for some more money, and then they ice up R&D. Curious. Is this not an agenda? Maybe they want Cambridge to steal it. Maybe the plan is to punitive. But can they? Cambridge and the Corp are tied in money. Cambridge, noticing that the Corp isn't moving forward with anything, says, okay, I'm just going to keep setting up then. And we see why that was delayed. SDS drone deployment trashes a program. Not very good if the runner doesn't have any programs installed to trash. SDS scored, Rozeki destroyed. A new card replaces SDS drone deployment in the remote. Cambridge responds by dropping their Ngolo and red teaming into HQ. Funhouse is the outermost piece of ice. Cambridge takes a tag, breaks Funhouse for 3 credits, sees border control, paints it with Ngolo, and breaks it for a total of 4 credits. Now, will the Corp border control end the run? I would assume not, but it's always an option. If for some reason the Corp wanted to prevent those 3 credits from the red team run from being gained. I guess though, DreamNet does have a bit of synergy here with the class act. So maybe that's a little more of a argument for using it. Additionally, because this is a run on HQ, Cambridge gets to pick 2 cards, present them to the Corp, and allow the Corp to choose which of the 2 Cambridge actually gets. I wish it told us which of the 2 were chosen. One of them was Rozeki. The other goes back to the runner's hand. It looks like it was a Begalter, I think. Because didn't Cambridge lose his Begalter? I don't see it in the heap anymore. Anyway, gets an HQ, sees an Afshar, sees a clearinghouse, doesn't trash the clearinghouse. Back over to the Corp. The Corp is stabilizing quite well here, really. Wall to wall, giving them some forward tempo. Will continue to do so unless Cambridge wants to contest it. Corp only has 7 credits, but a lot of this ice is res. It's not bad ice either. Cambridge himself isn't exactly rich. No penny shaver money. Security testing, no way to freely do that, since Archives is iced with res ice. A little curious as to why the Corp did this. They overwrote their wall-to-wall. They didn't overwrite it. They added wall-to-wall to HQ and then scored a hostile takeover. But when they could have just kept wall-to-wall in server 2, scored hostile takeover somewhere else, and then re-triggered wall-to-wall next turn. So they lost out a little bit on a couple resources there. Cambridge security test runs Archives. Probably mostly just for all the triggers and such. He is able to break Mausolus for 5 credits. And by doing so, gains penny shaver money, Archive security testing money, card draw from DreamNet. I think all of that was done because you break even on money if you click penny shaver. Sort of. No, you don't really break even on money, do you? You kind of down 1 credit. But I guess you get to trigger DreamNet and Class Act. I don't know. Seems a little weird. You do get to check Archives, but there wasn't anything in there. No, you don't get to check Archives because security testing. Anyway. Corp does put a card into server 2 protected by a 3rd piece of ice. Embezzle run at HQ. Luckily, the Corp was smart enough to put even another piece of ice just to help protect HQ. In this scenario, I might actually trash border control before. Now, see, I don't like this. The Corp should have used border control before Boomerang broke border control. That way the Boomerang would have been stuck there. Instead, they allowed Boomerang to be used. Border control ends the run. However, the run was not successful, which means Boomerang isn't shuffled back into the stack. Cambridge keeps running into Archives. Are they really getting anything out of that? Why are they doing this? He runs Archives, pays 5 credits to get through the Mausolus, only gets 1 credit from Penny Shaver, 1 draw from DreamNet, 2 credits from security. This doesn't add up. Running Archives like this doesn't get him anything. He can trigger the Class Act just by drawing normally. He's not making money off of any of this. Running Archives like this is actively losing him money. Anyway, wall to wall goes back into server 2. An upgrade was placed on HQ. It could be a Chrysium grid. Diversion of funds going into HQ. Afshar being a code gate. Broken by Angolo normally. Funhouse. Oh, you know what? Funhouse. I thought Funhouse was a sentry. It's actually just a code gate. Guess it's a pretty big difference between Funhouse and Data Raven. Indeed, though, the upgrade on HQ is Chrysium Grid, meaning this diversion of funds run is not considered valid. So instead, it's a normal access into HQ. Consulting visit and hard-hitting news revealed. That's not a good sign. Cambridge shakes the tag that Funhouse gave him. He doesn't even get to fire his ID ability, since the run was not considered successful due to Chrysium. I don't like that. I don't like that. I understand kind of why, but the court drops hard-hitting news and the runner immediately concedes. You certainly aren't obligated to keep playing, but the game wasn't over. Just because you're stacked with 4 tags. I mean, what could have Cambridge done? On the next turn, he was going to get a credit from Rozeki. He could have clicked for a credit and then shaken 3 of those tags. That protects him from boom. He's not going to get punitived. What is his plan here? Seems kind of like he petered out. Like, he wasn't able to diversion of funds because Earth Station smartly iced up HQ quite a bit. Embezzles weren't working due to the Chrysium grid. I mean, it's rough. Like, I think I get it on some level, because the Chrysium grid on HQ turns off so many things from Criminal. Turns off Cambridge's ID ability. It turns off diversion of funds, embezzle, even dirty laundry. Funnily enough, it doesn't turn off bravado, since bravado's trigger condition is just when the run ends. Turns off red team, though. Yeah, I think Cambridge ran archives a couple times, and I don't think it was the right thing to do. He was just throwing away money and clicks. If he had red teamed into archives, then maybe it would be worth it, because you'd be gaining 3 credits from red team, 2 credits from security testing that already pays for the Mausolus break, and then you're getting 1 credit on Penny Shaver and 1 draw. So it's kind of like clicking for a credit and a draw, sort of. Even then, it's not great. But yeah, the court played this very well. Oh, I'm a fool. A complete and utter fool. The runner had 3 bad publicity. That's why they were going into archives. Okay. Never mind. The runner was playing more intelligently than I was able to analyze the state of the game. Okay, well, when you factor that in, then they're actually only spending 2 real credits to gain 2 real credits back, plus Penny Shaver, plus DreamNet Draw. So even without Red Team, it's kind of like clicking for a credit and a draw. Okay. Makes way more sense then. But man, even with 3 bad pub, it still wasn't enough for Cambridge to actually tip the game over to his side. Oh well. I think that's going to be it for the night. It's been nice to actually have the time these last couple days to really see what people are doing in the Netrunner world. Seeing maxes, a lot of reality pluses. A lot of Renees. Cambridge seems pretty popular. Yo, Ajaya. Or Zaya. Pity though. No time to watch that one. For any of you still with me, of course, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying the new Netrunner cards as much as I am. Otherwise, take it easy out there. And I might catch you around. Later.